What's up, man?
Hey, how you doing, brother?
Good. How'd y'all do?
We lost by 6. It was a good game. It was merry.
Man, I miss playing.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about that. The best team was you, Dale, Bill, me, and Santiago.
Man, that was awesome.
That was a great team.
Yeah.
And then
how are the players now?
They're good. We play well. It's tough. And I'm older.
What does that mean? Slower?
It's just slower. Everything hurts more. I think this week my ankle hurt, and I think it was just from age. I don't even think I did anything to it. So it's that stuff, you know.
Didn't you? I always heard a story that you quit playing down in the city in that league. Somebody threatened you one time.
That was one of the reasons I stopped playing. I mean, he did the finger across the neck thing. And I don't know. It was my first year, and it was Columbia, so I was like, I have a feeling that could actually mean something. So,
man, and they said, later on they said that like Scott would punt a basketball into the stands. I don't know if you were playing back then.
Yeah. It was bad. And then that league was brutal.
Yeah,
I didn't like playing it because it was just too physical.
Yeah, I played in it once.
Yeah.
The first year I was there, it was crazy. They hated us.
Yeah. I would literally get punched in the back, like repeatedly. And the refs wouldn't call anything. They're just like, whatever. Yeah. And I've noticed like if you just take it, they're fine. The other player. But then if you like do something back, then it's like it's the end of the world, and they threaten you and they get all angry. And I'm like, well, then don't do anything to me, brother. Like it's just I'm not. You just want me to take it? And they're like, yeah, basically, that's what I want you to do.
That's why it got crazy because, like, do you remember Jamie, the big tall guy that was there? For 1 year?
Yeah.
He played college basketball. He was just a great athlete and super strong. And like, there were just a lot of physical games. I saw him take one guy and literally he pushed him so hard, and it shocked me because I didn't know Jamie was that strong because this dude was like super muscled up. This dude flew. Like Jamie just like pushed this dude like 5 feet. Like, get off me. Like there was some crazy stuff that went on.
Yeah.
There,
no, so the school league gets a little intense, but it's not as they're a little older. Although this new team, San Ignacio, they have some young guys that are pretty hot-headed. So I mean, like literally the guy fouled out and they were beating us by 16. Like that's how aggressive they are.
Wow.
Like you can't foul out when you're up 16. Like that's kind of asinine. So
that floor up there used to kill my legs too.
Oh, it's brutal. I fell down. Every time I fall down, it's just like, oh God. So I know what it feels like to play in the NFL, I guess. Right? If you just hit that floor, you're like, oh Jesus, every time for them. How's the boy? How's your family?
Man, awesome.
Yeah.
It's getting bigger.
Yeah.
Everything's very much a routine now.
Nice.
I was going to say that's actually for this phase of life is perfectly okay. I don't want to do anything.
Good. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice. The routine is nice, and summer's nice, and the breaks are nice. When do you end school?
This week coming.
Okay, same with us. Yeah. Same with us. And then it's off. And then are you traveling all around or staying there for a little bit and then coming down here? Or
Yep, we're gonna stay here for the summer because you really can't see a place. If you go home over the break, I mean, I don't see it when I'm working. I work every day,
Right.
And there's no time off here, to be honest with you. Like, Columbia's got tons of point days, but here the breaks are extremely long, but you don't have any breaks in between.
Ah, gotcha.
So my point is, if you leave, you don't really get to see the place. So I want to stay here. So we'll be here, and then we'll come down to Columbia about halfway through July for a couple weeks.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. We have to get together.
Yeah.
Be good to see you.
Yeah, it'll be good. Have all the family meet.
Yeah.
My daughter loves babies. It's her favorite thing in the world.
That's awesome.
Every time she sees one, she like runs over to it and it's like, hello and hola. And it's the cutest thing. So she'll love seeing River there. And then Joaquin will look at him. So
how's the end of your year going?
Fine. Just wrapping up. It's been a good year. It's just it always gets to the point that I've said this before. It's just like I'd like to keep working with them next year. Like we've done so much stuff that it's just, and I'm like, I gotta start again next year. And it's hard. It's hard to build trust and the relationships and all that stuff. So
yeah,
I mean, the more I do this, the only way I see it working is working with kids and families multiple years, because then you can actually do something. Like you can actually get to know the parents, and you get to know the kid, and like you see the history of the kid, so if something's wrong. And you get more time, because sometimes it takes longer to get to know some kids. Like I can't get to know all 23 kids the same in 180 days. Like really. Because I mean, if you break that down, that's what, 9 days per kid. Like that's crazy. Because there's 180 days of school, 20 something kids. That's 9 days a kid. That's stupid.
I'm terrified of having the same kids all day. That's a whole different concept. I've just never done that.
Right.
I've never been an elementary teacher.
Yeah. Well, we get to generalize. We don't specialize, which is a book I'm reading now. So called Range. It's pretty interesting.
Your ability to generalize is a specialization.
Yeah. Nice. Ooh, I hadn't really thought about that. That's the human specialization. Is that right?
Well, I mean, yeah, I can't do it. I can't come down there and teach math.
You can. You could.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm sure I could learn it, but I'm saying if I had to do it tomorrow, I couldn't.
Yeah, but you would succeed because you would build relationships with the kids, and that's really all it's about. At the end of the day, that's it. It's either you can build a relationship with the child, and then that child will learn stuff, or you can't and they won't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, basically.
And that's why I'm so against schools in general. Well, it's just an institution. It turns everything into a factory as opposed to a truly humanistic experience.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Because what you're saying does not have to happen. Like I've been thinking about that lately. Like there's something good about getting out of the home and getting into a different setting. I think there's a psychological trigger to that, right? Like to change the setting and say, all right, we're here for a different purpose. But I think you can do that without the sterile institutional feel that schools inevitably have, because that's what they are.
Right. Yeah. No, yeah, I think you just have to look at everything, and society for the most now is just off and wrong about like just so many things that you have to just, pause and try and what the other thing that I've realized is just with adults, it's so interesting. Like you could sit next to the same person, have the same exact experience, listen to the same information, and just walk away with completely different understandings of what's just happened. And so like when you see that too, then you see just when you work in an environment where there's how many people? Like 2,000 people here at this school. Like I don't know how you you can't get everyone in the same direction. You know what I mean? And what changes can you make? And so I suggest things like, I think all of us adults should be outside every morning, like everyone, maintenance workers, the cafeteria people, the office workers, everybody needs to be out welcoming the kids and needs to be out talking to them, because like that, the book I was telling you about, like I'm sure I've talked about the peer stuff. It's just so terrifying now. I see it like so much, and like, it's funny, I give this relationship survey to the kids every couple of months. And one of the big problems that kids have with me is I'm interested in their problems. It really bothers them that I ask what's wrong. And for some of them, not all of them, but some of them are like, mind your own damn business, old man. Like that's what they don't see me as someone that can, they think that their friends can help them. And then the horrible thing.
Say that also though, right? They have the right to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, they do. But then they tell their friends the problem, and then their friends go and tell everybody else what the problem is, and then they get all mad at their friends. And it's this cycle that continually runs, and they're just caught in it. They can't get out of it. They don't know any better. They don't. So that's why, like, if you get them younger, right, and you can build that, because they're less likely to rely on their peers the younger they are. So if you can show yourself to be and quite frankly, they probably had some really crappy relationships with adults, right? Especially teachers. There's a good chance that they've had at least one or two who wasn't very interested in the child, saw the child as a problem, and not just a human being that's doing the wrong thing, but like someone that's personally attacking them or whatever, and then just treats them poorly. So it's hard. It's a hard business to be in, I think.
And I think this was I think we talked about this, but just in case, because I can't remember where we were the last time, but yeah, I mean, the idea of taking 30 kids, because we'll say that's a normal classroom. You and I might teach in a classroom with 20, but the real classroom in the world is 30, if not more, right?
Right, yes.
I mean, the idea of taking 30 kids and putting them all together and then putting all those 30 kids with 1,000 kids, like you would never do that in a natural human setting.
Right, no.
Never. And I'm wondering, have they studied the psychology of that, of like what that, because that's kind of what that book is talking about, I think, on some level. But
well, and I think they haven't. Like, that's the shocking thing, is just how much we've just let happen with no real purpose. Like, it's just, the purpose was we needed to get kids out of the house and educate them. Like, we needed an educated populace to, like, not kill each other. But then that was it. And then nothing is, we haven't really adjusted since then, kind of thing. And now with all this stuff, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, it was an idea of efficiency, right?
Yeah.
Their concept of efficiency, and it was efficient, but our concept of efficiency is changing, because it's like, well, no, because the product we're trying to create now is something more humanistic, something more artistic, something less standardized. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's what I want to do with my child. I don't want to standardize factory produced human.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
And but I mean, you have to have some standardization, right, to get along with the society, because you can't be wild. You can't be pooping in the street. You know what I mean? You can't be pooping in the front yard.
I just told her that yesterday. I was like, he's going to be pooping everywhere. Don't worry.
Right. Yeah. Well, because that's my daughter before school. I mean, she was wild, man. She wasn't like out of control, but she would just run outside and poop and stuff, like, Yeah. But then she started going to school, and then all that changed, because like she learned the rules and the regulations, and like she's like, oh, I can't do that anymore. But
I do want, I agree with you, but I do want a balance, because like, again, this goes back to my my bias of believing that we were somehow, this is deep, crazy shit. I think but I almost see the concept of Eden, the Garden of Eden. I see it as like a consciousness, right? We talked about that, and so like I think the babies are in that, and I think it's just the natural human channel, I guess, like frequency. And I'm saying that because like the baby, when I watch him, he gets upset and stuff when we have him up with like lights on and things like that. Like, cause when the sun goes down, he's ready to go to sleep. Like, they're just so in tune with what's going on, and we aren't. You know what I'm saying? We are. I'm staring at my computer screen at 9 at night,
right?
Which is just blasting light into my face. So So I guess, and there's a saying, someone was telling Angela that babies are your Buddha. They're your master. I've just been reflecting on what that means, and so my point is, I don't want them pooping everywhere, but I also think that they are an animal, a wild animal. They're uncivilized at this point. But there is a little bit of brilliance to that.
Yes,
there's something there to be studied.
There is, and I think appreciate it, and to understand that they are consistently in the moment. Like they're not. Like, if you just watch them, they don't care. Like, the older they get, I mean, even as babies, it's consistently the moment. It doesn't really matter what's happening. They can go from one thing to the other pretty easy. It's just like, it's all good. They can think the end of the world is happening because, like you said, no. And then a second later, they're like, hey, let's play. And you're like, okay, great. So, and what's also interesting too, I don't know if we've talked about this before. It's like, you do see, because you do want your tyrant, because like your they can be tyrants, right? And they can be these, they have no empathy. Like, it just doesn't matter. Like, they'll hurt people. It just, so you do want.
I'll see that, obviously.
Yeah, you will. And so, and they go through this, and you want to get them out of it just because it is hurtful and whatever. And really, I noticed, like, when someone is like has like if they haven't matured all the way, or they like that's where I think a lot of these like mental issues and like all this stuff comes from. It's almost like they've got stuck in their childhood somewhere as toddlers, and they just weren't able to process, or they go backwards to that, because a lot of the behaviors I see, it's like my son at 4, or 3, and like from 2.5 to now. I mean, he's much better than he was, but like it's kind of the same kind of process that I see like other like adults go through. I'm like, holy crap! I was like, you totally remind me of my son. This is crazy. I think there's something to that, and we need to appreciate it, like you said. And then also, it's like where do you draw the line too? Because that was one of the things I'd heard, and I don't know if you've heard this before. It's like if we pacify them all the time and like take away like their strength or their aggressiveness or whatever, when the marauders and the barbarians come, like what the hell are we gonna do?
No, yes. Yeah. Like, I'm very skeptical of many narratives that are floating around out there now that are trying to become dominant narratives that are actively seeking in a religious proselytizing way for people to follow them. But I don't tell them, anything that's coercive, I'm skeptical of.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, once you go to an ideology and just think that way, then I think you're missing a lot of life.
Well, and I'm saying that in reference to specifically, because that was kind of encrypted, but I'm saying it because you're like, when the barbarians come, like, yeah, I mean, there's something out there that's seeking to pacify us to such an extent that we're totally manipulatable.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I've actually engaged in this conversation with my 5th graders. I was like, these people don't want you to think, man. I was like, they want you to be watching YouTube and sucked in and like not. And I don't know if people want that, but like that's what's happening. They're so passive. Yeah. They're so passive.
Well, I think they do want it, and even if it's just in a pure economic sense, because it's. Yeah. I mean, you've seen the CEOs coming out saying that they're purposely made to be addictive, and they have even like little algorithmic things, like weird shit, like. You have to, I can't remember what Angela was telling me, but like, like Instagram, you have to reload something, but it keeps, it makes you keep clicking just to see how many likes you've got. Some, weird stuff like that, like that has consciously been put in. I'm saying that has, that had an intention for putting it in the manner that it was put in.
And it's interesting how powerful the whole thing is, because like that was the big thing with cigarette smoking is like once young people knew that there were old people manipulating them to make money, like that's when smoking really became uncool. But now they don't care. Like now they don't. I'm like, these are old dudes who are manipulating you to make money, and they're like, yeah, it's great. It is so good. And you just see, like, I don't know if do you see your older kids? Like I see the older kids here. They look ill, like their face and their eyes. They look tired and just like sullen. And I don't know. It could just be my absolute bias. It could be my bias. I understand.
I was going to say, like, obviously my Korean kids were. A lot of them were like that, but that's that's because of the technology, but it's also because of their cultural expectations. They go to school so much, like like their parents, like they would go to bed at like 2 and 3 a.m. studying, and because they didn't want to even start doing their homework till like 12. And I was like, and do your parents know about this? And actually, their parents were proud of that. Like it's like a thing in their culture. Yeah. So anyway, but here, even in this laid back culture, I've got not the same amount of kids, but I've got 3 in my grade level that I think of a lot that are just constantly just zapped. And I'm like, dude, what time do you go to bed? Because they stay playing video games all night, and you can just see it. They just look,
or watching video games on YouTube. Have you seen that behavior?
Yes.
They watch the Fortnite
all the time. And I'm like, I knew that one day I would be old in my profession. You know what I mean? Because like when I first started teaching, I was young, and it was pretty much, especially if you teach high school, you're almost teaching your generation,
Right. Yeah.
When you're right out of college, that is. But so I knew I would get old eventually. And now, because, like old people be like, and I don't get this, and that's one I'm like, I really don't get this. It's like, I used to sneak and play video games on my calculator, but to watch someone play a video game, that is another
that's a level
extrapolation that I don't understand, man. Like we're becoming more and more passive each time.
Yeah. And like I've decided there's like esports now, like they get paid to play the game. So I've decided it's like darts. So it's not a sport, it's a skill. So I can't support it as a sport. It's not. I'm sorry.
I wrote this down this week. I haven't done any research on it because I used to play. Did you play video games at some point?
Oh yeah, I loved video games up until some point.
I think we talked about that. Yeah, like I was definitely addicted to my video games, but if you can control it, if you can balance it, I think there's major educational stuff in there, right?
Yes.
Like, I mean,
Yeah.
super. Like, especially these, like, some of these, like, war games that have historical narratives. I mean, those are also, like, strong propaganda, but it takes narrative and gamification into education. And it's just, you know, kids love it.
Yeah. Well, the thing that I think it's balance, like you said, it's a balance. And so it's there's a thing that I'm sure I've said this before that terrifies me. And even we just had our talent show here, like the elementary talent show, and it was ridiculous. Like the kids are like good, like they're good at stuff. Like they're you can tell that they practice. Have you ever seen the Tellas, the like Cirque du Soleil thing where they have like these two ribbons from the ceiling and they do these flips and it looks like they're gonna fall and they catch themselves? 2 fifth grade girls, 3 doing that. 3. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like it's super cool, but what are they sacrificing? Like, it feels like all these kids are sacrificing, like, play, like what we should be doing as humans. Like, we should be playing. We should be doing imaginative role, like, you know, cool play. And it worries me that I think a lot of kids are not doing that. They're doing, like, a lot of lessons. They're doing a lot of, like, direct play or social play. They're not doing, and it's in the book, they called it emergent play. They don't do this time where they spend it by themselves in this imaginary world. And so, like, that's very worrisome because I think I've said this before. It's like psychopaths, like serial killers, all had weird forms of play. Like they weren't allowed to play. They had overbearing mothers, and like they weren't allowed to play. They had some weird play stuff. Like every single serial killer. And so like that's
terrifying.
That worries me if we're losing. If as a species our young people are not playing, like that's for me it's very terrifying. And I don't know if I'm just overreacting. You know, I could be. But because I talk to other people about it, they're like, yeah, no, it's fine. Like, let them practice. I'm like, but they're not playing. So I don't know. It's just, it's something that, I mean, I see with my kids, they play. Like we let them watch some TV. They will never have a phone. They will never have an iPad. They will never, I don't think I'll get video game systems. I'm so worried now because they're just too good now. They're really just too good.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, like, as I was telling you the video game thing, I was actually thinking back to my childhood, and I was thinking about that first Nintendo that was in my house, and I was like, but as an adult, if I could go back and get that shit out of the house, I would.
Right. Yeah.
I would. Yeah. Like, I can't believe my parents let me sit there and play that thing all day.
Yeah, I had a TV in my room. Like, there's no way I'd let my kid have a TV in the room. None.
Yeah.
Zero.
But they were also, back then, I will say this, though, we weren't that, like, Nintendo wasn't that cool. Like I actually, if we could choose between Nintendo and going outside and playing, we would still go outside and play. Like it wasn't
addictive. Better. Yeah, it wasn't addictive and they were shorter games and like it didn't because now and this other one thing that was an excellent point is like now the games adapt to you so that you are successful.
Oh, get out of here.
Yeah, so that you don't really have to. And then if you get stuck anyway, you just cheat and look at the walkthrough video.
I don't know, though. You know what? I criticize that, but I think as a teacher, I do that.
No, I know. But like that was their argument against like, that's why you should play competitive sports and board games. Because like that's life. Because life is hard. And life, you fail at life and you lose. And you have to know that things are unfair and that. And I was like, yeah, I thought that was a good argument. That's why you need to have that balance. Like you can't just play video games because the video games are there to, you know, to keep you going and to advertise stuff now. I mean, really, it's like a free thing and they're trying to get you to pay like also, I don't know. Like the whole Fortnite game is free. You just pay for like the dances and the skins and the John Wick stuff.
They're making money off of that.
Yeah, tons of money.
Yeah.
Tons. Yeah, just so rich. So rich. But good for them.
Yeah, there was something I can't even comment on this. Maybe you know something about it. I'm just throwing it out there because maybe it'll float into your. Because I really can't explain this, but like that Steve Bannon guy that was with Trump somehow, he was connected to this. So I can't remember the exact story, but there was something about how in this one of these big video games, it was like one of the precursors to like Fortnite. It was a similar like shooter game or online game, and people were using cryptocurrency to buy like weapons and things like that.
Like real weapons?
No, like weapons in the game.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah.
But they were getting real money, and it was the players doing it. I'm saying, like the players would create. They were like coders, right? And they would create a certain weapon, and then they would sell it in that virtual world for virtual money that is actual real money. You know what I mean? And Steve Bannon was somehow connected to it because I saw this. I can't remember where I saw this, but supposedly that's why he got inspired to get into politics because he saw a bunch of video gaming kids come together because the actual video game company or provider was trying to squash it, and they couldn't.
Ha.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. It was like a black market arms dealing virtually.
Yeah. I didn't even think about it as an arms dealing, but yeah, exactly.
That's
It was.
fascinating.
That is insane. That's the virtual world. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
what we're about to get jacked into. That's where we're headed.
Yeah. Oh God. And like the whole like the virtual reality stuff. I'm never wearing a mask. I'm not doing it.
See, look, I feel that way. So why do we have that? What is that intuitive impulse? What is that? Why are we like that? I agree with you.
Yeah. I don't. I mean, 17-year-old me, I would have thrown that on because I was like, oh, it's cool. Let me do that. But now it's just like, it just seems very dangerous to get sucked into that.
I agree. That's what I'm saying. There's something.
And like, and the other thing too, that's why I really truly think adults should not be allowed to have phones at school. Like, I don't think we should have our smartphones. I think they should be, we have to put them in a locker or something.
Yeah.
Because it sucks you out of the reality. It just does. Like, you lose the opportunity to see someone and talk to them.
Well, dude.
And when you have the mask on, like, then that you're gone. Like, you are totally gone.
Our school policy, we have to have a smartphone. You have to have a smartphone because, and I'm serious, there's a school chat.
WhatsApp,
and that's how they communicate with us.
Yeah, no, I can't.
I
can't
hate
support it. It's just that's a short-term game and long-term loss. And people don't. It's very hard for people to see that.
Yeah.
It's and that's like with the no sleeping, like with the kids in Korea. Short-term game, yeah, fine, you can do that and do well in school, but like, what's your long-term loss is pretty devastating.
Yeah,
it's pretty devastating. But that takes wisdom and patience and time, and people aren't good with that these days, I think.
It's interesting because, you know, of all the schools that I've worked at, this sounds terrible, but I'm just saying based on my own personal values, you know what I mean? I think the first one I went to internationally in Austria would be the only one that I would put my kid in. And that's just how I feel. Okay. Right. Yeah. And I started analyzing why I feel that way, because there's some level of it where it represents everything I wouldn't want for my child, because the kids there have to put on a tie and a coat. It's like a traditional boarding school. You know what I mean? Yeah. But so I would think that I wouldn't be interested in that, because as an adult, like, I don't want to work. If I have to work at a school where I got to wear a tie, I'm working at that school. I'm with you right now. Right. I'm just telling you, that's my own personal values. I'm not going to do that, because when I did my student teaching, I had to do that. And I remember thinking, I purposely stayed out of the corporate world so I wouldn't have to do shit like this. So if you tell me I got to do this as a teacher, this ain't the school for me. You can find somebody else. Okay. Yeah. So I would think that I wouldn't want that for my kid, but I think what it is, you really opened my mind to that idea of 150, because that school was about 150 people. It was so small. Okay. Like grade 5 to all the kids, there were about 120 plus all of us adults. Nice. And it was just stuck in the middle of this Austrian village, and it was just a really intimate. I mean, it drove obviously. As a worker, I was way happier to be in Colombia. That was a lifestyle that I loved. I was ready to get out of that boarding environment. But for the kid, it was incredible, I think. Yeah. I think. If the parents are there, because some of the, most of the kids, their parents are sending them away. I'm talking about it from the perspective of me working there and being with the child and being in that little community. Yeah. Understood. Yeah. Yeah, because that would be important, because it is just, you want a family, you want a big family, basically. I mean, you want people to know each other and be there for each other, and that was one thing in that book that I read that really, you want as many adults as possible to love your kid, and that gives your kid the best possible chance in life, and to mature and to be safe and to really try things and be the best they can is to and like you said, like, when you talked about student-centered learning and teaching and how that totally got the adult out, it was just perfect timing, because that led me to that, like, read that book. And then it is so true how we are systematically getting rid of adults. Yeah. And here's the thing, like, I understand, because I have seen both sides. Okay. When I started my career, I did see those teachers who were just jaded, bitter, old people who were toxic. Yes. And were terrible teachers. And it was nothing about the student. The student had to shut up and listen, right? Yep. And that sucks too. Yes. Granted, I think there's a place where once you should mature, you do need to shut up and listen. I don't think there's anything wrong with a college style lecture. Okay. But anyway, that's for later. I can't remember where I was going with that now. I was trying to comment on what you were saying, but I lost it. Student-centered, and then the adults, like, because I had said. Well, okay. So with that being said, like with a lot of the international schools, some better than others, obviously, like how can you ever truly build what you're trying to build? Because, they all have this mission and vision. If you don't have a consistent staff, you're not going to do it. I'm going to tell you right now, because that means that you have to have good teachers, man, and good teachers have relationships with the kids. And you just, if you have, let's say, human resource policies where people are leaving every 2 years, then you're insane. Like all this is a joke. You're just lying about all this mission and vision that you're doing. If you're not maintaining people, that's just not real.
No, it's not. It's not. Like, you can't do it. You can't always start from zero. And so that's one thing. Like I've worked with. Have I ever told you this in last? So I think I will have worked with 20 teachers in 5 years on my grade team. On my grade team. Wow. It's just like, I mean, I'm like, like, that's hard.
You're just doing the same thing every year. Then you're just reteaching over and over and over again.
Yeah, and just trying to get them on board and stuff. And it's hard. And one thing I've realized now too is, like, some people, and reading that, like, adult development book really helped. It's like when they hear the word leadership, they only think of one way. And if you don't do the leadership the way they believe it's supposed to be done, then it's just, it doesn't work out. And that's one thing, like, reflecting as like a team leader and stuff. I sometimes give into things, but I won't cross some of my own personal lines, kind of thing, like doing things I don't think are as necessary of a leader to do. And that really rubs people the wrong way. So next year I'm taking the year off of team lead. So it'll be good. I think I'll actually be better. Have you ever seen that, the video about what you need in order to turn, like, for change? And it's this guy doing this crazy dance at, like, a Woodstock thing. Have you ever seen that? Okay, so this dude is just doing, like, I'm sure he's like, whatever, like, just he's in a different place, just doing this kind of crazy dance. Just he's all by himself, just like jean shorts on, and just like doing all this stuff, and like no one else is dancing with him. And so all of a sudden, though, the second guy goes over, and once the second guy goes over and starts dancing with him, then it's now the guy's not a crazy person anymore. It's like someone has attached to him, and so then everyone else started going. So it was like you can do the crazy stuff. Like, you can be super innovative and you can try all these big things. But if you never get someone to follow, like, if you don't have that second person to go, no, he's not a lunatic, he's okay, then you can't really do anything. And I can be that first person. I know I can be the first person, do all sorts of crazy shit, but I'm very good at being the second person. So, because I'm a very good follower. Like, I can follow the shit out of things. Like, I'm very good at that. So I am interested to see how that goes as someone, because, like, I also too, like, I want people to understand that I do the things I do because I believe them, and not because I'm like a team leader or something. Yeah. Because I always think, like, there's some, like, illusionary authority with that position, and they're like, oh, you're talking to me like that because you're the team leader. And I'm like, well, next year I'm going to talk to you like that because I'm morally correct about what I'm talking. So it'll be interesting to see how big of a pain in the ass I am next year. I will have to remember that. But yeah, you need a second person to have change. It's a good video. It's like a TED Talk. If you look up, like, crazy dance TED Talk, it's 2 minutes. So you want me to tell you about the curriculum? My human development curriculum? Yeah. So, I mean, it's obviously just an idea that, I mean, I haven't written any standards or anything. But so this is, and I'll tell you what the triggering point was. So it has long bothered me that people think learning should be fun and learning is easy and all this stuff. And it's long bothered me that, like, oh, it's supposed, like, things have become very, very easy. And, like, the idea that, oh, like, knowledge, you should just Google it. And, like, it's okay not to know stuff. Like, that bothers me. Like, it bothers me on many levels. And I've always thought about, like, us humans in the tribe, and, like, before society, like, as small people, like when we were deciding whether or not for our kids to sleep in our bed or not. I was like, well, why wouldn't a child want to sleep with their parents? Like it's completely mammalian and completely, like, it's just, you just feel safer. So I used to think I was going to be very strict and go, no, get to your bed. Like, and I tried that once, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, yeah, sure, we lay down, and they do have their own bed, but if he wants to come into my bed, like, I don't care, whatever. Like, I get it. So I think about the past, I think about this stuff. And so my daughter, it took 10 seconds for her to learn how to ride a bike. And the reason it took 10 seconds for her to learn how to ride a bike, it might have been like 2 sessions of 10 seconds, is because have you seen these Strider bikes? I think they're called balance bikes. So they don't have pedals on them, and you just kind of it's a bike with no pedals, and you just balance. And so you just get used. You get used to balancing. You don't really fall. There's no real effort involved. And because you do that for like a year, you get on a bike. It takes like 10 seconds, and you've got it.
Gotcha.
And I was sitting there going, that is one of the biggest memories I have as a child is learning how to ride a bike.
Yeah.
Crashing over and over and over again, getting up, bleeding, and like getting on the bike and finally doing it and like feeling really proud of myself. She is never
like
going
flying when you finally get it.
Just huge. She's never going to remember learning how to do that. Never. She's never going to remember she's never going to remember the day she rode a bike ever. God. Because it wasn't that big of a deal. Right.
Yeah.
And so what I started thinking about is like, I was like, God, all we see now, all of our kids, the only thing they get is the easy shit. Like all they get, all of the work that was put into what we've done as a species, they don't see that at all. They just see the spot. And so, so do we. And so my thought process was, well, shit, like, what if I look at human development? Like from the time that we left Africa until now, like what did we do and how long did we do it? So the basic like idea would be to have a school where like, your first is almost kind of like what like Europe does. Like I think there's a lot of sense to that. Like until you're 7, 8, 9 years old, there's no point to teach you how to read or write. Like there's no point to that. You should bang on drums. You should dance. You should sing together. You should commune together and build a society and build nature and be outside and, be there dancing around, like, go camping all the time and dig and like all this shit outside. And then, once you've got that and you're mature, obviously tell stories. Everyone should learn how to tell a story. You should sit around and tell stories and talk to each other about things. You should teach them the right from wrong and morality and all that stuff. And then you teach them how to read, and then you teach them how to write, and all the time probably doing math, because I think we did math longer than we've been reading and writing, right? Like math came way before that. So you're probably doing math and all that stuff, and art. So you learn how to make paint. Like you learn cave painting, you learn finger painting, but you learn how to make it. You learn how to make the paint. You learn how to paint on the walls with your hands, and like you follow human development. So that high school, now you get introduced to computers, maybe your senior year, and you have to build one. Like, like you have to put in the effort. You got to build a toaster before you can use it. Like you got to learn how to make fire. You got to learn how to do all that shit before you can actually use it. And we can do that with the internet because you can watch people. Like there's a whole YouTube channel where this guy is actually, I think that was years ago I saw that. He's actually working his way through human development. So he started in he tried to figure out how to do fire with woods, and then he started creating spears, and he's gone all the way through. And I think he was in like the Iron Age at this point. So it's like stuff like that. Like
what is that? I'd like to check that out.
I can't remember but if you like Google like YouTube channel, I don't know. I don't know what it is, but like he like makes everything. Like he tries to figure this stuff out. I don't even think he looks at the info. I just think he tries to intuitively try and figure out what to do to do this stuff. So the whole thought process was like, if we actually do that and you go through, because you got him 14 years. Like school is long. It's a long ass time. And so I think if you try to figure out like percentage wise, because like science, like I think scientific thinking, like trying things and looking and thinking, that would be important. But we didn't start science until what, like 300 years ago? So like maybe I love science, but maybe that shows us that we need to be doing a bunch of other stuff first before we start really focusing in on technology, electronics, and STEAM and all that crap. And obviously like studying history the whole way through, because that's been the whole thing is our history, right? Like that's been the beginning, is we have told stories about each other and need to know about each other, like what we're capable of, who's the bad guy, who's the good guy, tell those stories. So I think that there's something intuitively easy about that idea. And I think that I would love to try and develop that and like implement that.
And I love how that matches Carl Jung's concept of the human psyche.
Okay.
I don't know if you ever heard him talk about the house analogy, but he says at the top of the house on the second floor where we live is the modern era.
Okay.
On the first floor is, whatever, it would be like the medieval period, the Middle Ages, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's the ancient, which would be like Roman, Greek, etc. Mm-hmm. And then there's the basement, and the basement's the cave, it's got the shit on the walls. He says that's the psyche. That's the subconscious, in other words. No, I know that's very immaterial and like philosophical, but still, I think there's something interesting is within that, and I think that kind of matches a little bit of what you're saying too about that progression.
Yeah,
I like that because
go ahead.
I like it.
No, go ahead.
I wonder though, like when you were saying writing standards, because like my bias now is getting where like I'm like, man, fuck standards, unless the standard is saying that the kid found it on their own and felt achieved, or they reflected on their goal, or whatever. I mean, you could also reconceptualize what a standard is. It doesn't have to be something again sterile and like.
I like I had heard something guiding principles.
Standard in the most perfect setting that you can imagine. I know this is very fairy tale-ish, but at some age, now maybe in the beginning we do it, but at some age the kid would have input into that standard, right? Like, what do we want to be able to do?
Yeah. Well, too, like, and this, and it would be, and see, like, I think what holds people back is like that's a big experiment, right? To try that, because you need that's a 14 that's a 14-year experiment, and I think people don't understand that as long as, I mean, it's not going to be worse than my public school I went to. Like, it's not.
Well, look,
I know that.
and it's not just that. Like, and this sounds arrogant. I was telling Angela this too. It's like, but I've been around the world doing this, and I'm pretty good everywhere I go doing it. So people pay me to teach their kids.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They do.
Yeah.
So why is it absurd to think that I can do this with my kid?
Right. Yeah.
Everything that I've conceptualized about how I would make a school, I can do that with my kid.
Right.
And it basically means getting rid of the school.
Yes.
It doesn't mean staying at home. It doesn't mean sitting in my house and trying to teach the kid in something that looks like a classroom. It means the opposite of that. It means getting out in the world and doing this with someone who understands psychology, cognitive development, curriculum. I mean, all that. Like, if you have that knowledge and now you've got the total freedom to be able to go out and do it, like, you could give your kid the best education in the world, basically,
Yeah, you can. You can. And maybe that's the goal. Maybe that's the change that can happen.
Well, okay, and I'm gonna rant one more time. One more, because you think these things and you know that society is going to disagree, etc. Even though they don't know what they're talking about. Again, we're the ones that are professional teachers. It would be like me arguing with a doctor over how he's going to do my surgery or something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or she.
Yes.
And I lost it again. We were talking about the.
You know what you're doing.
So you think, well, okay, this is a crazy idea, and then you see people that are the most innovative people in the world. I was watching Elon Musk, and it was on some channel in China. Of course, you would never see this in the U.S. And he's talking about. I'm joking, because you wouldn't see it in China either. Actually, but it was in China, and the woman was very curious. She's like, well, what kind of education do you give your kids? He was like, I took them out of school.
Yeah.
And she was like, really? He was like, yeah, I just made a school. It's my kids and a couple others.
Yeah.
And he said, I found their favorite teacher at the school I was paying for them to go to, who also agreed with me that this could be done better. And he and I sat down and created our concept of the school. Yeah. And she's like, well, what's it like? And he said, well, there's no grades. Like, it's all age groups together. So, I don't know how big the age group is. It's probably pretty close.
Yeah.
He's like, for example, we don't teach them this is a wrench and this is what you do with it. We show them a motor and say, like, you want to take this apart? All right, what do we need to do it? We need this thing. Okay, this is what this thing does. That's how they learn what a wrench is. So it's a reverse thinking. Okay. And and then beyond that, it's everything that you imagine with like self-directed learning, like kids setting goals and achieving. He said he's like, and this is Elon Musk talking again. He's like, I hated school. It was absolute torture to me. Yeah. He's like, and my kids would go on vacation and they're ready for vacation to be over so they can go back to their projects, basically, to their what they're doing. It's their life project. Everybody's got that going on.
Yeah.
And then in a separate, it was the same video, but a separate interview, someone was saying, well, what do you think about, what do you look for in a degree? He was like, I don't care if you went to school at all. Your degree means nothing to me.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. I might send it to you if you're interested in seeing that. But my point is, we're talking about the guy who's talking about SpaceX, and I mean, maybe the most brilliant mind in the past 100 years on this planet, right? And he's saying the same thing. Like,
what does he know?
It was created for. Look, I'm not saying it was created to program in like a necessarily like government control way, but
Right.
it is programmed. It's like you just said that it is. Think about what you were saying. Human thought is very fragmented and everybody sees something different. And the whole point of this thing is to try to homogenize that thought or get it moving in one direction,
Yeah.
which is not necessarily bad, but you have to agree in that direction.
For me, it's like I don't let me see if like the direction I would like people to get to is where they're their own person, if that makes sense. It's like they have, they've internalized all these different ideas. Like they've heard from everyone. They've heard from Karl Marx. They've heard from, Adam Smith. They've anyone and everyone, and they've made up their own mind about kind of where their belief. And they understand that there's gray in most things, and maybe part of Karl Marx is right and part of Adam Smith is right, and you can there's no ideology. That's kind of where I would like people to go. And maybe that's like, that would also be something that I would be interested in. I don't care where you, I guess I do care. I guess I want people in the middle. So maybe I am biased there. I just want people like to listen and be able to change their mind. And I was just reading this thing about Einstein and about like the gravitational ripples. He like went back and forth. He's like, they're there. And then he's like, no, that's not a thing. And he's like, yes, it is. And then he published a paper saying that they existed. Then he published a paper a month later saying they didn't exist. And everyone's like, well, aren't you afraid that you're going to be wrong and like fail? He's like, I have my name on so many wrong things. It just doesn't even matter. But he finally he at least said like, this is important. We need to figure it out. And then 100 years later, we were able to figure it out. But I want people to have like crisis within them. And like, I don't know which is the right way, instead of just believing that what they think is right, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's funny too, because have you ever seen this movie called Waking Life?
No, I don't believe so.
It's fascinating, but there's this one part of the scene where these guys are walking, because it's all just like fragmented pieces.
Okay.
And they see this old man who's like climbed up a light pole, and they're like, hey, you need help, old man? He says, no. And they're like, what are you doing up there? He's like, I don't know. And some guy says, he's like, what a dumbass. He's like, and so another guy who was talking to him says, well, he's no different than us, because we're all theory and no action. He's all action and no theory.
Oh, okay.
So as a teacher and living in this world of academia that I've been in forever, because that's, you spend 14 years as a student, and then if you become a teacher, you just go right back into it, right?
Yeah.
I'm all in that world of theory. And I don't have the other end of the spectrum, which is the physical reality of having a craft and being able to actually do something and make something. Like, so I think that's one reason why I'm driven to this more simpler idea of life too, of getting out of these institutions, because I need that balance. I need the other end of the spectrum, which is, I know Karl Marx and Adam Smith and all that shit, but I don't know how to build a house.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
True. Yeah. What would you want out of the graduates of your school, like thinking wise and thought wise?
I already told you, like, I think our first conversation, I want Jason Bourne.
Oh, okay. All right, yeah.
I want MacGyver. That's what I want. I mean, but I'm saying for me, the kid has to figure out what their Jason Bourne is. That's my thing.
Okay, gotcha. Yes.
I want them to be independent and very capable. Yeah. But, and this is what I can't figure out yet. When I say independent, I'm not saying that they don't have any connection to community. I mean that they are not codependent, put it that way.
Right. Yes. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Well, I think that's what it is, at least in that, because I'd never heard it explained that way. I'm sure I've said it before, but in that book, he describes like real maturation is kind of rejecting everyone. It's like you reject your parents, you reject your friends, you reject society, and you figure it out for yourself. And then once you go through that transformation, you kind of rejoin society, because you've decided for yourself that this is right for me, and this is what I want to do. But
Who said that?
The book, what's his name? Dr. Gordon Neufeld.
Okay.
So in the book, Hold On to Your Kids. That's what he talks about.
That's the hero's journey.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
Hero's journey? Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that because like Occam's razor, I think is like you look for the simplest solution to the problem, and simple doesn't mean easy. It just means there's less moving parts. Mm-hmm. So I mean, that's why I think like we have all of human history, right? And we can like that is a huge vat to like learn from. And that's a very simple thing to look at and go, oh, look at the hero. Like that cycle is really important. We should really be cognizant of that and like maybe live that way, at least try it out to see if it works. And then if it works or not. But we're certainly not encouraging that, and certainly not pushing that at this point. It's just, this is the standard. This is the content. You need to pretend to learn it, by studying the night before and doing well on your assessment. And then cheat to get into college so that you can be drunk for, most of the time and maybe commit some crimes, and then you get a job and then you're
And be in debt. Which is
Get a job.
which if you get really paranoid, you think that's the whole point anyway, right?
Yeah,
Get 'em
there you
in.
go. Just we're on the conveyor belt.
Hey, I think you made me realize something talking about pulling from that whole breadth of human history. I think that's kind of the importance of what Carl Jung was saying with that house analogy, because he's like, even though you're living in the second floor, that house is built on that basement, that cave, and if that shit's gone, the house falls. So everything from the house starts with the ground up, and that's why I think that maybe that's what he was getting at, because he did say that everybody needs to get. He's like, everybody needs to get back to the land in whatever way they possibly can. That doesn't mean you have to leave civilization, but he had a piece of land in Switzerland where he would go out to the lake and just follow his intuition. Basically, he's like, that's the only thing that's going to.
He built a tower, right? Is that the one?
Yeah.
He spent 2 hours. His working schedule was 8 to 10, and then he would just hang out and go for walks. And
I didn't know that.
He only worked 2 hours. He worked 2 hours a day, 8 to 10, and then he would go out in the nature, walk, have a nice meal with his family. But 8 to 10, you did not talk to him. You didn't do anything, and he thought deeply. That's when he came out, I think, with his biggest theories is doing that. Because I was just talking about how we do need some solitude and some time to think and to be uninterrupted in our thinking, and that we've lost that because of technology. I think I was going to ask you something else, and now I can't remember. But yeah, I mean, no one. I mean, who reads Carl Jung? Is that even anything that we ask kids to do in high school, or is that only for people who go to college?
Hell, I didn't even have to read it in college. I just found it through interest.
Well, yeah, and that stuff.
Well, I guess if you became a psychology major, you would encounter it at some point.
Is that the problem with specialization then?
Well, see, that's my point. That's what I'm saying. Like, you and I now, as living, as graduated adults, you can call it, I guess. Our interest goes, I found that because that's what you want out of the graduate. You want someone who is following their own intuition and knows how to find their own resources and can pick their own path. Everybody's not going to read Carl Jung, and Carl Jung's not for everybody to read. Probably. I don't think that should be. Maybe it shouldn't be on the reading list necessarily.
True. But you should have a reading list.
Well, see, again, I'm so skeptical right now of everything about. I just find institutions, and I'm not saying this is wrong. I'm saying I haven't made up my mind about it, and my intuition is that it is wrong. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But all institutions are dominant in some way. They are coercive in their nature. So even with that reading list, I'm skeptical. Why that one? Because that one is directing things. And maybe I'm not saying the answer is no. I'm saying I'm very skeptical of it.
Right? I was just saying you should have a list, not
each person.
The person. Yes.
I thought you meant humans need this.
No.
Okay.
I don't think there's any. I mean, I think maybe everyone should read all the religious books. I think that I don't think there's a problem, because that's kind of where stories originate, right?
Yeah.
And not those one of the books, but all of them. I wouldn't put one above or below the other. But it always surprises me how little kids. And I think I was wanting to comment on something you said, but I'll just say it seems like and that's the other thing. We've made things very, very easy, right? Because before, have I ever told you my it always makes me sad, when I watch Civil War stuff, and they have the letter written by the cavalry guy who went to maybe 7th grade, maybe, and he writes this wonderful prose, just wonderful, and I'm just like, why did they write so good with the?
I've never thought about that. That's true.
And my thought is they heard only the Bible, right? That was it. That was, if there was any sort of storytelling, that was the book that was read. So there was no kid book, and there wasn't Sam I Am. And so
I'm sure it was King James.
Right. So they heard their whole life, just these really complicated, hard stories. And so things were harder. So they wrote better because that's what they heard. And so now we and again, I don't know if that's right or not. Maybe it's better to slowly get kids there, and it's easier and it's more fun, but I don't know. Cause I definitely want to read Aesop's fables to my kids. I definitely, I want them to be pushed with some complex content early. Because I think, that might be another way we've dumbed people down, is just here are these very easy books because we want you to read these instead of.
That's what I'm telling you. That I don't know what it is. I don't know how to describe it, but that thing, that weakness is what I call it, has manifested from the wealthy passive elite,
Uh,
right, of the U.S. or wherever it's coming from. And it seems like the U.S. because Latin America seems to follow these U.S. educational trends at least.
yeah.
And I'm saying, you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about where I'm not saying the other way is right, but
Right.
something seems wrong with this too, where you go and everybody gets the trophy. You know the typical
Yeah,
story.
yeah.
Like, that.
Yeah.
That
You gotta
where
earn
does that come from? Man, I grew up in Red Dirt, Iowa. We were out there fucking smashing heads together. You know what I'm saying? Like when we played football, like it was violent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like now it's, no contact and everybody wins. And I'm not saying that smashing my head was good either, but the other one doesn't seem like the right answer either.
No.
Yeah.
I think that, again, that there's a balance and there's something in between, and there's something about earning something. And that was something I saw on Twitter. This guy I follow, like Nassim Talib is his name, and he's an interesting guy. And this other guy, Naval. But anyway, like they were retweeting and talking about this idea that we no longer earn our food. And I'm like, oh shit, yeah. And it's like, you should do something, like you should do enough robust activity, like that you earn what you eat.
Sure.
Like if you think about school or you think about society, we tell people when to eat. We're like, no, you need to eat now. And like, I'm not hungry. I don't care if you're not hungry. You need to eat. Like, what kind of habit is that? What kind of habit are we building where
that's the factory?
Exactly. It's like we just eat all day.
It's
you just eat all day. You don't need to earn anything, and you only get to do PE twice a week, and no physical activity, and it's not even that robust. And so the other thing was like if old age, what I thought this was interesting is really a lack of sleep, it's a lack of diet, and it's a lack of robust activity. So if you don't eat well, if you don't get enough sleep and you're not moving, then that's why you feel old. And I was like, yeah, that seems reasonable.
Man, just living a simple life now is a revolutionary act, and it's going to become more and more revolutionary. You're going to become weirder and weirder just for wanting to. I'm serious, just wanting to live close to the earth. You're going to become a freaking weirdo and outcast. But somebody's got to be out there dancing.
Yeah, they do, and then we need some people. People show up. So we'll be dancing, and then people can kind of show up.
I think I got to run. That's a good ending too. It came full circle with the dance.
Yeah. Dancing. Got to dance if you want to. Leave your friends behind. Because if your friends don't dance, they're no friends of mine. Right?
Yeah.
Is that the All right, man.
Hey, I'm not really traveling this summer, so holler at me. We can do this a couple more times.
All right, cool. All right. Looking forward to it, man.
All right,
see you.
Later.
Bye.